The crying had already been going on for a while, not the kind that explodes, the kind that stays, soft, broken, refusing to stop. People in the cafe kept pretending not to hear it. They stared into cups, scrolled on phones, shifted in their chairs. A woman sat alone at a small table by the window, one chair, one child on her lap, one untouched coffee growing cold, her arm wrapped around the boy's back. Not tight, just there. Her fingers moved in slow circles like she was counting time. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm here." The boy's face was pressed into her shoulder. His breath came in sharp pulls. His small shoes kicked the table leg once. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Someone nearby sighed. Another person looked up, then quickly away. A woman 2 tables down leaned toward her friend. "Some people have no consideration." The mother heard it. Her mouth tightened. She did not look up. She lifted a spoon from a small bowl between them. The oatmeal had gone cold too. "Just one bite," she said softly. "Then we can go." The boy shook his head. His crying changed. It sounded tired now, like he had been holding something heavy for too long. Her hand paused. The spoon hovered in the air. Then she set it back down. "I know," she whispered again. "I know." Her sweater sleeve was worn thin near the wrist. A faint stain darkened the fabric. Her bag rested open at her feet. Inside, a folded envelope peeked out. The corners were bent from being opened too many times. Behind the counter, the barista noticed the looks. He noticed the shaking shoulders. He noticed the way customers leaned closer to complain without saying her name. He wiped the counter twice, then took a breath. "Ma'am," he called gently. The word landed hard. The mother looked up. Her eyes were tired, clear, too calm for how loud the room suddenly felt. "Yes," she said. He walked over, careful with each step, like he was choosing the least painful path. "I'm really sorry," he said quietly, "but some customers are uncomfortable. Would you mind stepping outside for a bit?" The boy cried louder. His arms tightened around her neck. She did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She just stared at the barista for a moment longer than needed. "Outside," she repeated, "with my child." "Yes," he said, "just until he settles." A man near the window muttered, "Thank God." The mother nodded once, a small nod. The kind people use when they already know how this ends. She wiped her son's cheeks with her sleeve. She whispered something into his ear. The crying softened for half a second. She stood slowly. Her knees shook. She held the chair until it passed. As she reached for her bag, her hand trembled. She picked up the coffee cup, then put it back down. Near the door, an older man watched. Plain jacket, gray hair, nothing special. He did not look annoyed. He did not look away. The mother moved toward the exit. Cold air rushed in as the door opened. The boy cried into her shoulder. Just before she stepped outside, the older man stood, not fast, not loud. "Wait," he said. "Let me walk with you." She stopped. Her shoulders dropped, and for the first time her face showed how close she was to breaking. Why would a stranger follow her into the cold? And what did he see that everyone else missed? The door closed behind them. The cafe noise dropped instantly. No clinking cups, no murmurs, just the thin sound of traffic and the wind moving down the street. The mother stood there for a moment, not stepping away, not turning back, like she needed a second to remember how to stand outside again. The boy's crying slowed. It did not stop. His face stayed buried in her shoulder. His hands clutched the fabric of her sweater like it might disappear. "It's okay," she whispered. Again, always the same words. The older man stopped a few steps away. He did not come too close. He kept his hands visible, empty. "I didn't mean to make it worse," he said calmly. She shook her head, a small movement. "You didn't." Her voice was steady, too steady. The wind brushed her hair loose from the knot. She did not fix it. The boy sniffed. His breaths came uneven now. He rubbed his eyes with his fists, leaving red marks on his skin. The man watched quietly. "My name is Daniel," he said after a moment. "If that helps." She nodded again. "Sarah." They stood there. The space between them felt careful, respectful. Inside the cafe, someone laughed. It sounded wrong out here. I can move, Sarah said suddenly. I don't want trouble. Daniel shook his head. You're not trouble. She looked at him then, really looked. Her eyes searched his face like she was trying to decide something important. He's not usually like this, she said, not defensive, just tired. He doesn't like crowds or noise. Daniel nodded. Some days are heavier than others. She let out a breath she had been holding. Her shoulders lowered slightly. The boy shifted. His crying faded into quiet hiccups. He peeked at Daniel through swollen eyes, then hid again. Daniel smiled softly, not at the child, at the moment. You did nothing wrong, he said. Sarah pressed her lips together. Her jaw tightened. They always say that, she replied. Outside. She adjusted her grip on her son. Her arm shook from the effort. She leaned against the wall for support. Daniel noticed. He stepped a little closer. Do you need to sit? He asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. We'll be fine. Her bag slipped from her shoulder. Papers shifted inside. The folded envelope slid halfway out. She pushed it back quickly, like it was private. Like it mattered. Daniel saw the movement. He did not ask. A bus passed. Wind rushed again. The boy shivered. Sarah pulled her sweater tighter around him. She rubbed his back slowly, counted the breaths with him. 1, she whispered. 2. The boy matched her rhythm slowly, carefully. Daniel stayed silent. After a while she spoke again. We were just trying to have breakfast. Her voice cracked on the last word. She stopped talking. Daniel waited. She swallowed. I promised him pancakes, but this was closer. She gave a small, sad smile. I thought it would be easier. Daniel looked at the cafe door, then back at her. Do you want to go back inside? He asked. Her eyes widened just slightly. They won't let us, she said. Daniel's voice stayed calm. They might. She looked at him, confused now, curious. What do you mean? She asked. Daniel took a breath, straightened his jacket. I think, he said slowly, they should hear something. Sarah stared at him. The boy lifted his head, looked at Daniel again. The cafe door reflected their shapes in the glass, and for the first time it felt like something might change. What could one quiet man possibly say that would make a room full of strangers listen? Daniel reached for the cafe door, not yet opening it, just resting his hand there, like he was testing the weight of the moment. Sarah watched him. Her grip on her son tightened. You don't have to, she said quickly. Really, we'll go. Her eyes moved down the street, already planning the walk, already bracing. Daniel looked back at her. His face was calm, steady. I want to, he said. The boy lifted his head again. His eyes followed Daniel's hand. His crying had slowed to small sounds now, soft breaths, little breaks in between. Daniel opened the door. Warm air rushed out. Coffee smell. Voices. The room quieted just a little as people noticed him step back inside. He did not stand tall. He did not command attention. He walked to the center of the cafe and stopped. I won't take long, he said. His voice was low, clear. I promise. A few people shifted. Someone checked their watch, someone else sighed. Daniel turned slightly so Sarah could still see him through the glass. There's a woman outside, he continued, with her child. The woman in the neat coat frowned. We know, Daniel nodded. Yes, you do. Silence followed, not comfortable, not angry, just waiting. He's crying, Daniel said, because he's overwhelmed, not because she doesn't care. A man near the window scoffed quietly. This isn't a place for that. Daniel looked at him, not sharply, not accusing. It's a public cafe, Daniel replied, not a quiet room, not a rule book. The barista stood frozen behind the counter. Daniel kept his voice even. She paid, she ordered, she stayed calm. Someone near the back spoke. It's still disruptive. Daniel nodded again. It can be, so is judgment. A few heads turned. Outside, Sarah pressed her forehead against her son's hair. She could not hear every word, but she could feel the pause, the tension. The boy tugged at her collar. Mom, he whispered. I'm here, she said, always the same answer. Inside, Daniel continued. We all come here carrying things, he said. Some are just louder than others. No one laughed. No one clapped. The woman in the neat coat crossed her arms. Are you saying we're wrong? Daniel thought for a moment. I'm saying kindness costs less than coffee. The room shifted. The barista cleared his throat. Sir, he said quietly. "We don't usually." "I know," Daniel interrupted gently. "Neither do I." Daniel glanced at the window again, at Sarah, at the child clinging to her. "He's not misbehaving," Daniel said. "He's communicating." The man near the window opened his mouth, closed it again. Silence spread. Finally, the barista spoke. "She can come back in." A few people protested, softly, without much energy. The woman in the neat coat rolled her eyes but said nothing. Daniel nodded once. "Thank you." He turned and walked back to the door. Outside, Sarah stared at him, uncertain, afraid to hope. "They said you can come back," Daniel said. She blinked, once, twice. "You don't have to," she said again. "We can just go." Daniel shook his head. "You belong inside." Her throat tightened. She looked down at her son. "Do you want to try again?" she asked softly. The boy hesitated, then nodded just a little. She took one careful step toward the door, then another. People inside watched as she entered. Some avoided her eyes, some looked uncomfortable. Daniel walked beside her, not leading, not behind, just there. As she reached the table by the window, her legs shook again. She sat slowly. The boy climbed into the chair and leaned into her side. The cafe noise returned, normal, uneven. Daniel stayed standing for a moment, then he sat at the empty table across from her. "I'll stay," he said quietly. "If that helps." Sarah nodded. Her eyes filled. She did not let the tears fall, not yet. Why would a stranger choose to sit with her, and what part of this story was still being held back? Daniel sat down slowly. The chair scraped the floor just a little, too loud. A few people glanced over, then looked away again. Sarah noticed everything. She adjusted her son on the seat beside her, pulled him closer. Her hand rested on his knee, steady and warm. "Thank you," she said, quiet, almost hidden under the noise of the cafe. Daniel nodded. "Of course." They sat in silence for a moment. The boy picked at the edge of the napkin. His breathing was calmer now, not even, but calmer. Sarah reached for the spoon again. This time she dipped it into the oatmeal. "One bite," she said softly. "Just one." The boy hesitated, looked at Daniel, then back at his mother. He opened his mouth. The spoon trembled slightly as she lifted it, but it reached him. He swallowed, slowly. Sarah let out a breath. It sounded like relief. Or exhaustion, or both. Around them, the cafe tried to act normal again. Cups lifted, chairs moved, a register beeped. But the space around their table stayed different, careful. Daniel noticed the envelope in her bag again. This time more of it showed. A printed header, official, heavy. He did not stare, he just remembered it. "You come here often?" he asked gently. Sarah shook her head. "Not really." She watched her son chew. "Today was special." Daniel nodded. "I see." She gave a small smile. It did not last. "My car's in the shop," she added. "We walked." Daniel glanced at the door, at the cold outside. "That's a long walk," he said. She shrugged. "He likes to walk." The boy nodded once like he agreed with her. Another bite, slower this time, but it stayed down. Sarah wiped his mouth with the napkin. Her hands moved automatically, like she had done this 1,000 times. Daniel leaned back slightly, gave her space. At the counter, the barista watched them, nervous, curious, unsure what to do with the quiet. A woman nearby whispered something to her friend. Sarah's shoulders stiffened. Daniel noticed. "He's doing well," Daniel said, louder than before. Not loud, just enough. Sarah looked at him, her eyes glistened. She blinked. "Thank you," she whispered again. The boy leaned against her side. His head rested just below her arm. His eyes fluttered. "He doesn't sleep much," she said suddenly, like the words slipped out before she could stop them. Daniel waited. "Nighttime is hard," she added. "Mornings too." She paused, pressed her lips together. "I try not to bother people," she said. "I really do." Daniel shook his head. "You're not bothering anyone." She looked down. "They always say that before they ask us to leave." The boy shifted. A soft sound escaped him. Sarah stroked his hair until it faded. Daniel studied her face. The tired lines, the strength holding everything together. "You're doing more than enough," he said. Her eyes finally filled. A tear escaped. Just one. It slid down and disappeared into her sweater. She wiped it away quickly. "Sorry." Daniel shook his head again. "No need." They sat like that for a while, quiet, present. Then the boy whispered, "Mom, pancakes." Sarah smiled. "A real one this time." "Next time," she said, "I promise." Daniel looked at the empty chair across from him, then back at them. "You know," he said carefully, "sometimes promises take longer, but they still matter." Sarah met his eyes. Something passed between them. Recognition. Maybe understanding. She glanced at the envelope in her bag, tucked it deeper inside. And for the first time, Daniel wondered what promise she was carrying alone. What was written in that folded letter? And why did it feel heavier than everything else in the room? The cafe grew quieter as the morning moved on. Not empty, just slower. The rush faded. Cups stayed longer on tables. Sarah's son rested his head against her arm. His eyes were half closed now. The oatmeal bowl sat almost empty. She watched him breathe, counted again. Daniel stirred his coffee. He had not taken a sip yet. "That letter," he said softly, careful, "you don't have to explain." Sarah's fingers tightened around the edge of the table, just for a second. "I know," she replied. "But I think I want to." She glanced down at her bag, hesitated, then pulled the envelope out slowly. It was plain, white, creased. Her name typed neatly across the front. She did not open it. "I got it last week," she said. "At the hospital." Daniel did not react. He just listened. "They handed it to me like it was nothing," she continued. "Like it was a receipt." She swallowed. "I read it once," she said. "Then I folded it back up." Her son shifted. She paused, ran her fingers through his hair until he settled again. "They say he needs a specialist," she said. "A program." Daniel nodded slowly. "Insurance won't cover it," she added. Her voice stayed flat. "Not the kind he needs." The words hung there, heavy. "I work nights," she went on. "I clean offices. I leave him with my sister. She helps when she can." Daniel noticed how she said "when she can." "I save what I can," Sarah said. "I skip things, coffee, new shoes, heat sometimes." She gave a small smile. It did not reach her eyes. "But numbers don't change," she whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked away for a moment, then back. "Today was supposed to be a good day," she said. "I wanted him to feel normal." The boy's eyes fluttered open. "Mom." "I'm here," she said instantly. He relaxed again. Daniel watched the two of them. The way she bent around her child like a shield. "That's why pancakes mattered," he said. Sarah nodded. She folded the envelope again, tucked it back into her bag, deeper this time. "I didn't open it here because—" her voice faded. "Because hope is fragile," Daniel finished gently. She looked at him. Her eyes widened slightly. "Yes," she said, "exactly." The barista walked by, slowed, then stopped. "I'm sorry about earlier," he said quietly. "I didn't handle it well." Sarah looked up, surprised. "It's okay," she replied, automatically. Daniel watched her. He noticed how quick forgiveness came to her, how practiced. The barista hesitated. "Coffee's on the house," he added. "For both of you." Sarah shook her head. "You don't have to." "I want to," he said, and walked away. Daniel finally lifted his cup, took a sip, let the warmth settle. "People don't always know what they're seeing," he said. Sarah nodded. "They see noise, not pain." Her son stirred again, sat up, rubbed his eyes. "Mom, can we go now?" he asked. "Yes," she said softly. "We can go." She gathered her bag, moved slowly, careful not to rush him. Daniel stood too. Outside the light had changed. Softer, warmer. At the door Sarah paused. "I don't know why you stayed," she said. "But thank you," Daniel smiled. Small, gentle. "Some days," he replied, "you sit where no one wants to." She considered that, then nodded. As they stepped toward the exit, Daniel reached into his coat pocket. He felt something there. Thin, folded. And for the first time he wondered if this meeting was an accident at all. What was Daniel carrying in his pocket, and why did it feel connected to her letter? The door closed behind them again. This time the sound felt different, not like being pushed out, just like leaving. Sarah adjusted her son's jacket, pulled the zipper up to his chin. He leaned into her, tired but calm. Daniel stood beside them on the sidewalk. The morning air felt lighter now, or maybe it was just quieter inside them. "I should let you go," Daniel said. "You've had enough for one day." Sarah nodded. "We need to get home." The boy yawned, a deep one. He rested his head against her chest. Daniel reached into his coat pocket. Slowly, he pulled out a folded paper, smaller than her envelope, older. The edges were soft from being handled too much. He did not hand it to her right away. "I don't usually share this," he said. Sarah looked at it, then at him. "You don't have to," she replied, again. "I know," he said, "but I think today is the right day." He unfolded the paper once. Then again, it was a photograph, a child, around 5, sitting on a hospital bed, tubes, a brave smile that did not quite hide the fear. Daniel's hand tightened around the photo. "That's my daughter," he said quietly. Sarah's breath caught. "She used to cry like that," Daniel continued. "In public, at home, everywhere." He paused. People stared, some complained. Some told me to control her. Sarah did not look away. "We spent a lot of time in hospitals," Daniel said. "A lot of mornings like today." The boy in Sarah's arms stirred. She held him closer. "She needed a specialist too," Daniel said. "A program we couldn't afford." Sarah's eyes filled again. She did not stop it this time. "I worked 3 jobs," he went on. "Sold my car. Moved into a smaller place." He folded the photo carefully, put it back into his pocket. "She didn't make it," he said. The words landed softly, but they stayed. Sarah closed her eyes just for a second. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "I know." They stood there. The street moved around them. Cars passed. People walked by. Life did not pause. But before she passed, Daniel said, "Someone helped us." Sarah looked up. "A stranger," he continued. "Sat with us one day, paid for a visit, then another." He took a breath. "It changed everything, not the ending, but the journey." Sarah swallowed hard. "I come here every Thursday," Daniel said. "Same time, same coffee." She frowned slightly. "Why? Because that stranger used to," he replied, "and because I promised myself I'd notice." Her son stirred again. "Mom, I'm here," she said, "always." Daniel reached into his pocket once more. This time he pulled out a small card, a name, a number, a hospital logo. "I work with the program your letter mentioned," he said. "I volunteer now." Sarah stared at the card. Her hands shook as she took it. "I don't understand," she whispered. Daniel met her eyes. "You will." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. "I don't know what to say," she said. Daniel smiled gently. "You don't have to." He stepped back, gave her space. The boy peeked at the card, then at Daniel. "Thank you," Sarah said again, louder this time, stronger. Daniel nodded. As they turned to walk away, Sarah held the card like it might disappear. She did not look back. Daniel watched them go. He touched his pocket. The photo was still there. And for the first time in a long while, his chest did not ache the same way. But help always comes with questions, and Sarah still didn't know the full truth about what Daniel could do. The apartment was quiet, not peaceful, just still. Sarah set her bag down by the door. She slipped off her shoes without using her hands. Her son leaned against her leg, half asleep. "We're home," she whispered. He nodded, barely awake. She carried him to the couch and laid him down carefully, pulled a blanket over his small body. His breathing slowed, evened out. She stood there for a long moment, watching, listening. Then she remembered the card. It was still in her hand. She moved to the kitchen table, sat down, placed the card in front of her like it was fragile, a hospital logo, a name, a direct number. Her fingers hovered above it. She thought about the cafe, the looks, the door closing, the way Daniel's voice never rose. She thought about the letter in her bag. She took it out, laid it next to the card, 2 pieces of paper, 2 different weights. Her phone buzzed, a reminder, second notice. She turned the phone face down. The apartment heater clicked on, then off again. Sarah picked up the card. She did not dial right away. She went to the couch instead, sat beside her son, brushed his hair back, kissed his forehead. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I promise." Back at the table, she took a breath and dialed. It rang twice. "Pediatric Care Coordination," a woman answered. Sarah froze. Her voice caught. "I was given this number." "One moment," the woman said kindly. The line clicked. Soft music played, too cheerful. Sarah stared at the wall, her heart pounded. "Hello?" A man's voice came on. She recognized it instantly. "Daniel," she said. "Yes," he replied, calm. "I was hoping you'd call." Her eyes filled. She laughed once, a broken sound. "I didn't know if I should," she said. "I know," he answered. "You don't have to explain." She closed her eyes. They spoke quietly, about appointments, about paperwork, about things Sarah had learned to fear. Daniel did not promise miracles. He did not rush. "We start small," he said. "One step." Sarah nodded, even though he couldn't see her. When the call ended, the apartment felt different, not lighter, just possible. Her son stirred on the couch, opened his eyes. "Mom?" he asked softly. She went to him, sat beside him. "Yes, baby." "Are we okay?" he asked. She paused. "Yes," she said finally. "We're getting there," he smiled. A small one, sleepy, trusting. He fell back asleep. That night Sarah opened the letter again. Read it slower this time. She did not fold it away in fear. She placed it beside the card on the table. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, something had shifted. But she did not know yet how many people would soon be watching her story unfold. The help had begun quietly, but soon Sarah would have to face the same cafe again, and this time she wouldn't be invisible. The cafe looked the same from the outside. Same window, same sign, same chairs stacked near the door. Sarah stopped across the street. Her son stood beside her, holding her hand. His grip was tight. "We don't have to," she said softly. He looked up at the door, then back at her. "I want to try." She nodded. They crossed together. The bell above the door rang. Heads turned, just like before. Sarah felt it immediately, the quiet shift, the pause, the looks that pretended not to look. Her son's step slowed. He pressed closer to her side. "I'm here," she whispered. "Remember?" The barista recognized her. His eyes widened slightly, then softened. "Hi," he said. "Good morning," she nodded back. "Morning," they ordered simply. One coffee, one pancake. The boy watched the counter carefully. His foot tapped the floor. A woman near the window glanced over, whispered something to her friend. Sarah's shoulders stiffened. The boy's breathing changed, faster now, shallower. She noticed instantly. "Look at me," she whispered, crouching down. "Count with me." He nodded, tried. "One," she said. "Two." A chair scraped nearby, too loud. The boy flinched. Sarah wrapped her arms around him, held him steady. "It's okay," she whispered again. The words never changed. From the back of the cafe, a familiar voice spoke. "Sarah," she froze. Daniel stood near the counter. Same plain jacket, same calm eyes. Her breath left her all at once. He walked over slowly, knelt to the boy's level. "Hey," he said softly. "I remember you." The boy studied him, then nodded. Daniel smiled. "You did really well last time." The boy's shoulders dropped just a little. Sarah stood. Her hands shook. "I didn't know you'd be here," she said. "I told you," Daniel replied. "Thursdays." He looked around the cafe, met a few stares, did not flinch. "You want to sit?" he asked. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. They took the same table by the window. Some people avoided looking at them this time. Some watched openly. The pancakes arrived, warm, steaming. The boy stared at them, smiled. "Pancakes," he whispered. Sarah laughed softly, a real laugh, quiet, full. He took a bite, then another. Daniel sat across from them. He did not speak much. He watched, he noticed. The woman in the neat coat from before sat 2 tables away. She glanced over, looked away, then looked again. The boy dropped his fork. The clatter echoed. He froze. Sarah reached for his hand instantly. "It's okay," she said, calm, steady. He nodded, breathed. Daniel watched the room. People were quieter now, more careful. The barista moved gently, like he was learning something. The woman in the neat coat stood up suddenly. Sarah tensed. But the woman only walked to the counter, paid, left without a word. Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her son finished his pancakes, licked his fingers. "Mom," he said, "I like it here." Tears filled her eyes. "Me too," she replied. Daniel looked at them, at the empty plates, at the calm. "This," he said quietly, "is how change starts." Sarah nodded, but she didn't know yet that this small moment would not stay small. Not after what Daniel was about to do next. Why did Daniel keep coming back? And what was he preparing to reveal to everyone watching? It happened slowly, not all at once, not loudly. People began to notice not the crying, the calm. Sarah came back again the next week. Same day, same time, same table by the window. Her son held her hand as they walked in. He looked around first now, measured the room, the bell rang. A few heads turned, then turned back. The barista smiled at them. "Good to see you." Sarah smiled back, small, careful. Daniel was already there, same coffee, same seat. Like a promise kept, they sat together, not close, not distant, just enough. The boy tapped the table with his fingers, softly, counting. "1," he whispered. "2." Sarah watched him. Her hand hovered near his back. "Ready." A chair scraped behind them, too sudden. The boy stiffened. Sarah leaned in instantly. "Look at me." He did. His eyes searched hers. "I'm here," she said. "Nothing bad is happening." Daniel said nothing. He just shifted his chair slightly, blocking the noise. The boy breathed. Someone nearby noticed. A woman with a laptop paused her typing. Watched. The boy picked up his fork, took a bite, chewed slowly. The woman went back to her screen. But she smiled first. Over the next few weeks it kept happening, not the crying, the noticing. People stopped sighing, stopped whispering, some asked questions, quiet ones. "Is he okay? Does he need space?" Sarah answered when she could. Shook her head when she couldn't. "No," she'd say softly, "just time." One morning a man at the next table moved his chair without being asked, gave them more room. Another day someone picked up the boy's dropped napkin and placed it gently beside him. Small things, ordinary things. Daniel watched it all. He still came every Thursday, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, but always there. One morning Sarah arrived alone. Daniel noticed immediately. She sat down slowly, her shoulders were tense. "He's at an appointment," she said. "With my sister." Daniel nodded. "How did it go?" She hesitated, then smiled, a fragile smile. "They accepted him," she said. "The program." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, just a moment. "That's good," he said. "It starts soon," she added. "It's a lot, new people, new places." Daniel nodded again. "You won't be alone." She looked at him. "I already know that." The barista brought her coffee without asking, set it down gently. "It's on us today," he said. Sarah shook her head. "You don't have to," he smiled. "I want to." She accepted it this time. Across the room someone was watching, a woman with a notebook. She scribbled something, looked up again. Daniel noticed her. "People are paying attention," Sarah said quietly. "Yes," Daniel replied. "They always do, eventually," she frowned. "Is that okay?" Daniel thought for a moment. "It depends on what they do with it." That afternoon, Sarah received an email, a short one. "We heard about you. We'd like to talk." She stared at the screen. Her hands trembled. Daniel was right. People were watching now. And soon they would hear the part of the story that had been kept quiet for too long. Who had been watching from the corner of the cafe, and what would happen when Sarah's story was finally spoken out loud. The email stayed open on Sarah's phone. She read it again. Then again. Not long. Not detailed. Just enough to feel heavy. Daniel sat across from her. He watched her face change. "Bad?" he asked gently. "I don't know," she said. "Just big." She slid the phone across the table. Daniel read it once, then set it back. "They want to hear," he said. Sarah let out a slow breath. "I don't know how to tell it." Daniel nodded. "Most people don't, not at first." The cafe hummed around them. Cups, voices, movement. The boy sat beside Sarah, stacking sugar packets carefully, one on top of the other. "Mom," he said, focused. "Look," she smiled. "That's good." The stack fell. He froze. "It's okay," she said quickly. "You can try again." He did. Across the room, the woman with the notebook sat again. Same place. Same careful watching. She stood after a few minutes, walked over. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Sarah stiffened. Daniel stayed still. "My name is Helen," the woman continued. "I work with a local community paper." Sarah's stomach dropped. "I've been coming here for weeks," Helen said. "I noticed changes." She glanced at the boy, smiled softly. "I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to talk. Only if you want." Sarah looked down at her hands. Her fingers were shaking. "I don't like attention," she said. Helen nodded. "Most people don't." Daniel said nothing. He let the silence work. Helen continued. This wouldn't be about pity, it would be about understanding. Sarah closed her eyes, the cafe, the door, the cold, the way she had felt so small. I don't want him judged, she said quietly. Helen crouched slightly, met her eyes. Neither do I, the boy looked up. Mom. I'm here, Sarah said. Always. She looked at Daniel. He did not nod, he did not shake his head, he trusted her to choose. I'll think about it, Sarah said finally. Helen smiled. That's enough. She left her card, walked away. Sarah stared at the card like it might burn. What if they twist it, she asked. Daniel answered honestly. They might. Her chest tightened. But, he added, what if they don't? The boy stacked the packets again, slower this time. That night Sarah could not sleep. She sat at the table, the letter, the card, the email, 3 pieces of paper, 3 paths. She thought about how many times she had been asked to leave places quietly, how many times she had swallowed words. She opened her laptop. She typed. Not everything, just the truth. The next morning she hit send. The cafe was full when she came in the following Thursday, fuller than usual. People turned when the bell rang. Whispers moved faster this time. Daniel stood as she entered. Sarah's heart pounded. She felt the old fear rise. But she did not turn around. She walked to the table by the window, sat down, and for the first time she understood something. Silence had protected her before, but now it was time to be seen. What would happen when Sarah's quiet story reached people who had once looked away? The cafe was louder than usual, not chaotic, just full, chairs filled, tables taken, voices overlapping in soft layers. Sarah noticed it the moment she stepped inside. The bell rang. More heads turned this time. She felt it in her chest, the old tightening, the instinct to retreat. Her son squeezed her hand, looked up at her. We can go, she whispered. He shook his head. No, I want pancakes, she smiled. A small one, but it stayed. They walked in. The barista looked surprised, then nervous, then relieved. Good morning, he said, louder than before, like he wanted everyone to hear. Morning, Sarah replied. Daniel stood from his chair near the window. He didn't wave, didn't rush. He just waited. They reached the table, the same one. Sunlight spilled across it now. Sarah helped her son into his chair, adjusted his sleeves, smoothed his hair. Around them people watched, not openly, but enough. A woman whispered, "That's her." Sarah's shoulders stiffened, her breath caught. Daniel sat across from them, calm, grounded. They read it, he said quietly. Sarah nodded. I know. Her phone had not stopped buzzing since morning. Messages she hadn't opened yet, names she didn't recognize. How do you feel? Daniel asked. She thought about it. Like I'm standing in a room without walls, she said. He nodded. That makes sense. The boy tapped the table, once, twice. Sarah reached out, took his hand. I'm here, she said. He nodded. A woman approached slowly, middle-aged, kind eyes, careful steps. Excuse me, she said. I just wanted to say thank you, Sarah blinked. For what? For sharing, the woman replied. My grandson is like your son. Sarah's throat tightened. The woman smiled. We stopped going places. I wish we hadn't. She touched Sarah's arm briefly, then walked away. Sarah stared at the table. Daniel watched her closely. You okay? She nodded. Tears filled her eyes anyway. Another person came by, then another, not speeches. Not apologies, just quiet acknowledgments. I didn't know. I'm learning. I see him. The boy ate his pancakes slowly, carefully, like he was aware of the moment but not overwhelmed by it. A spoon clinked nearby. Loud, he flinched. Sarah reacted instantly, but before she could speak, the sound stopped. A man at the next table had caught his spoon midair. Sorry, he said softly. The boy looked at him, then nodded. Something shifted in Sarah's chest. This wasn't pity. It was space. Daniel leaned back slightly, let the moment breathe. The woman in the neat coat from weeks ago stood near the door, watching. She hesitated, then walked over. I owe you an apology, she said stiffly. Sarah looked up, met her eyes. You don't owe me anything, Sarah replied. The woman swallowed. I judged you, Sarah nodded. I know. They stood there for a second longer than needed. Then the woman left. Sarah exhaled. Daniel smiled gently. You did that? She shook her head. We did. The cafe returned to its rhythm. But it wasn't the same rhythm anymore. Not for Sarah, not for anyone watching. And somewhere outside the glass, a larger audience was gathering, listening, waiting. But public kindness often invites public truth. And soon, Sarah would have to speak in front of more than just a cafe. The room was not a cafe. It smelled different, clean, quiet, like chairs had been wiped down too carefully. Sarah sat in the second row, her hands rested in her lap. Her son sat beside her, feet not touching the floor. He swung them gently, counted the swings. 1, he whispered. 2. She placed her hand over his, slowed them. I'm here, she said. He leaned against her side. At the front of the room, a woman adjusted a microphone. Papers shuffled. People murmured. Sarah felt the same tightness she had felt outside the cafe door weeks ago. That old feeling. Daniel sat a few seats away, not beside her, not in front, close enough. He caught her eye, nodded once. No pressure, just presence. A woman stepped forward. Thank you all for coming. Sarah barely heard the rest. Her name echoed suddenly. And now Sarah will share her experience. The room applauded, softly. Sarah did not move. Her heart pounded so hard she thought others might hear it. Daniel stood slowly. He didn't say anything. He didn't touch her. He just stood. Sarah looked at her son. Can you sit here? She whispered. Just for a minute, he nodded, serious. She stood. Her legs felt unsteady. The floor felt too far away. She walked to the front. The microphone waited. She swallowed. My name is Sarah, she said. Her voice shook. She paused, let the shaking pass. I'm a mother. She stopped again, breathed. My son cries in public sometimes, she continued. Not because he's bad, not because I don't try. She looked out. Faces watched her, some curious, some kind, some unsure. I was asked to leave a cafe once, she said. A ripple moved through the room. I didn't yell, she said. I didn't argue, I just left. Her hands clenched, then relaxed. I leave a lot of places, she added quietly. Silence followed. She spoke about mornings, about walking instead of driving, about promises made with pancakes. She did not explain diagnoses. She did not beg. She just told the truth. I want him to belong, she said, everywhere. Her voice cracked. She closed her eyes for 1 second, then she opened them again. The room was still. No one moved. At the back, someone wiped their eyes. Sarah finished softly. That's all. She stepped back. Applause came slowly, then grew, not loud, not overwhelming, respectful. She returned to her seat. Her son looked up at her. You did good. She laughed quietly, pressed her forehead to his. Daniel leaned over, whispered, you were brave. She shook her head. I was honest. As the room began to empty, people approached her, not to congratulate, to share. My sister, my child, I never knew. Sarah listened, nodded, held space. Outside, the sky had changed again. Late afternoon light. She stepped into it feeling tired and lighter, but she didn't know yet that one person in that room had been waiting to say something she never expected, who was waiting in the quiet after the applause. And what truth were they about to reveal to Sarah? Most people had left. Chairs scraped softly as they were pushed back under tables. Voices faded into the hallway. The room felt bigger now, echoing. Sarah stood near the side wall, her coat folded over one arm. Her son sat on the floor beside her, lining up the edges of the carpet with his fingers. Straight, careful. Daniel spoke quietly with someone near the front. Sarah watched him without really thinking about it. Then a woman approached her. She was older, neatly dressed. Her expression was serious but not cold. Sarah, she asked. Yes, Sarah replied. My name is Margaret, the woman said. I'm on the board. Sarah's stomach tightened. I wanted to thank you, Margaret continued. What you said today mattered. Sarah nodded. Thank you for listening. Margaret hesitated, looked toward Daniel, then back at Sarah. There's something you should know, she said. Sarah felt it before the words came. That quiet sense that something was about to shift. We've been reviewing the program you mentioned, Margaret said. The one your son was accepted into. Sarah's breath caught. It exists because of a private endowment, Margaret continued. One donor. Sarah frowned slightly. I didn't know that. Most people don't, Margaret said. The donor asked to remain anonymous. Sarah glanced again at Daniel. He was still speaking with someone, his back was turned. The funding covers therapy, transportation, support, Margaret said, for families who can't afford it. Sarah's eyes filled. I don't know how to thank, she began. Margaret lifted her hand gently. That's not why I'm telling you, Sarah stilled. The donor comes every Thursday, Margaret said quietly, to sit, to watch. Sarah's chest tightened. He asked us to look out for one family in particular, Margaret added, if they ever came. Sarah's mouth went dry. He described a mother, Margaret said, tired, gentle, always apologizing for things that weren't her fault. Sarah's knees weakened. She reached for the wall. And a child, Margaret continued, who cried because the world was too loud. Sarah's vision blurred. That family, Margaret said softly, is yours. Sarah shook her head. No, that can't, Margaret nodded once. His daughter would have been about your son's age. Sarah closed her eyes, the cafe, the photo. The way Daniel never spoke about himself unless asked. She saw it all clearly now. Daniel turned then, saw them standing together. He knew. He walked over slowly. Daniel, Sarah whispered. He stopped a few feet away. His face was calm, but his eyes were wet. I didn't want you to feel like you owed me, he said. That's why I never said anything. Sarah shook her head again. Tears fell freely now. You paid for all of this, she asked. For him, Daniel nodded. For many children. But I saw you, she said. You were just sitting there, he smiled gently. That's where it started for me too. Her son stood up, walked toward Daniel, looked up at him. Thank you for the pancakes, the boy said seriously. Daniel laughed softly, then knelt down. You're welcome, he said. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. This was the truth, not loud, not announced, just waiting. But what happens when a hidden sacrifice becomes impossible to keep quiet and the world finally sees it? The story did not spread all at once. It moved quietly, the way real things do. A short article appeared first. No headlines in bold letters, just a photograph of a cafe window, a mother's back, a child's small hand on a table. No names were used at first, but people recognized it anyway. Someone shared it, then someone else. By the next Thursday, the cafe was full again. Not curious, respectful. Sarah noticed the difference the moment she stepped inside. People did not stare. They made space. A man moved his chair before she asked. A woman smiled and nodded, then looked away. Daniel sat at his usual table, same coffee, same quiet presence. Sarah walked over. You didn't want this, she said. Daniel shook his head. No, but it's happening, she replied. Yes, he said, and that's okay. Her son walked beside her, calm, observing. He looked around, took it all in. No pancakes today, Daniel asked gently. Not today, the boy said. Today I just want to sit. Daniel smiled. That's allowed. They sat. The barista came over, nervous, earnest. I wanted to say something, he said. I've been thinking about that day. Sarah nodded. I was wrong, the barista continued. And I've been training the staff differently since. Sarah blinked. You didn't have to. I know, he said, but I wanted to. He left without waiting for forgiveness. Daniel watched him go. That matters, he said. Sarah nodded. It does. Across the room, a small sign had been taped near the counter. All are welcome, take the space you need. Sarah stared at it, her chest tightened, in a good way. Her phone buzzed again. Messages, invitations, requests. She ignored them. Daniel noticed. You don't owe anyone anything, he said. I know, she replied. But maybe I can help someone else feel less alone. He nodded. That's how it continues. Her son leaned against her side, calm, present. Mom, he whispered, people aren't mad. She kissed his hair. No, they're learning. Daniel watched the boy, then looked out the window. My daughter would have liked this place, he said quietly. Sarah reached across the table, placed her hand over his. I think she's here, she said. He did not pull away. They sat in silence, comfortable, honest. Outside, someone stopped at the window, read the sign, smiled, walked in. The cafe noise rose gently. Life continued. But something had changed, not because of a speech, not because of anger, because one woman stayed calm, one man stayed present, and one child stayed exactly who he was. But the loudest moment was still coming, not in a cafe, but in the quiet way this story would end. The cafe was not crowded that morning, just steady. Sunlight rested on the tables like it had nowhere else to be. Cups warmed hands. Chairs stayed where they were. Sarah arrived a little later than usual. Her son walked beside her, carrying his jacket instead of wearing it. "I don't need it," he said. She smiled. "Okay." The bell rang. No heads turned this time. That felt like progress. They sat by the window, the same table, but it did not feel like a landmark anymore, just a place. Daniel was already there. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning," he said. "Morning," Sarah replied. Her son climbed into his chair on his own, swung his legs once, then stopped. "I'm okay," he said almost to himself. Sarah watched him, did not correct him, did not rush him. Daniel stirred his coffee. "How's the program?" he asked. Sarah thought for a moment. "Hard," she said. "And good," Daniel nodded. "That sounds right." She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded drawing. "My son made this," she said, "at therapy." Daniel unfolded it carefully. It showed 3 stick figures, one taller, one small, one in between, a table, a window, a sun in the corner. Daniel smiled. "That's us." Her son leaned over. "That's you," he said, pointing. "And that's Mom. And that's me." Daniel folded the drawing again, slipped it into his pocket next to the photo he still carried. "I'll keep it," he said. Sarah nodded. They sat quietly for a while. A child laughed at another table. Loud, sudden. Sarah's son flinched. She placed her hand on his back, not to stop him, just to be there. He breathed, settled. "I'm here," she said, still the same words. Daniel watched them. He did not interrupt. He did not step in. He had learned when to stay quiet. Across the room, the sign near the counter was still there. No one pointed at it. No one needed to. A woman entered with a stroller, hesitated, looked around. The barista smiled and moved a chair without being asked. The woman relaxed. Sarah noticed. She looked at Daniel. He saw it too. "It keeps going," she said softly. "Yes," he replied. "It does." Her son finished his drink, wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Mom," he said, "can we come back again?" She smiled. "A real one, easy." "Yes," she said, "we can." Daniel stood to leave. "I'll see you next Thursday," he said. She nodded. "Same place." He paused at the door, looked back once. "Thank you," he said. Sarah shook her head gently. "For sitting, for staying," he replied. He left. Sarah and her son stayed a little longer, not because they needed to, because they could. Outside, the world moved fast, loud, uncertain. Inside, a small table by a window held something steady. Not a lesson, not a victory, just a quiet understanding. That sometimes the most powerful change begins when no one is watching, and stays because someone finally is. Some stories don't end loudly. They live on in the way people choose to stay.